We're going to be talking about the violence that's taken place in the world and how did we get to this particular place? Do you know in World War I, it was reported that when the soldiers went out to fight the war, they had a big issue. And the big issue was, you know, to train for war, to go to boot camp and all this different stuff and to be dedicated to your country is one thing. To be able to go out and pull the trigger to take another human life was many people in World War I could not pull themselves to be able to do that. And it is a big thing, you know, being a former law enforcement officer, that's something you have to train for over and over again. So one of the ways that they tried to help that mindset to be able to train a soldier is they started creating these virtual scenes that made it look like, you know, that it was an actual taking of a life in a war. And so they would just kind of role play that and rehearse that. And they found out in World War II that we didn't have that issue anymore. So some of the technology we're going to be talking about today on today's program is the technology that we didn't have in World War I, we now have all around the world. All around the world. Every single day, people are training, the training that America realized it needed to have to be able to succeed in World War II, we have now in our living rooms. As a matter of fact, it's called Grand Theft Auto and these other games just like this. As a matter of fact, you're looking at an image right now, probably behind me. This may look like something you've seen on the news recently. I mean, you're looking at a man right here where he's, you know, it's the police officers right there, and they're actually firing this gun. The guy on the left is firing his gun at the police officers. I mean, it looks just like the news, doesn't it? But guess what? That's actually what a lot of kids and adults are doing every single day, not just in America. These are the reports right here. You see the numbers that are playing this. 34 million. I mean, look at these numbers right here. 34 million players. 34 million. Think about that. Across the world, 34 million people are doing what we needed to be done. 34 million are doing stuff just like we saw not just every single day, but hours of the day. You think about that. In addition to that, inside these games, according to ING.com, that in 2014, which was last year's stats around October or so, they say that in this particular game, Grand Theft Auto, they have over 340,913,222 weapons inside this game. And it's just amazing every single day. And parents are buying this game for their kids. And so the kids, you know, kiss their mama goodnight and they go murder half the people virtually in their game. And they go, you know, they can't tell the difference. Can you tell the difference in society now since we actually loose these games out here? And when I think about this, and this is definitely, you know, parental guidance suggested what I'm about to show you. This is a video clip right now you're about to see of Grand Theft Auto. And you're going to notice this, that this looks a lot like France. A couple of months ago, this looks a lot like ISIS. It looks a lot like ISIL. It looks a lot like what we're seeing in the streets of America and the streets of the world right now. But realize it's been happening virtually in your home possibly, or in the home of your neighborhood. As a matter of fact, take a look at this.
For the game, I think that games have every right to be violent. Have happened, involves violence. I'm not talking about that at all, frankly. I'm not talking about aliens in the face with shotguns, RPGs, sniper rifles, knives, you name it. I mean, I can go and basically unleash terror upon the town of Liberty City here in Battle of Gay Tony, and the depiction of such and kind of caused quite a bit of uproar, quite a bit of fear. It's going to be a rampant thing that we have to deal with for the rest of our lives as people have access and just become more and more daring and more crazy. Quite a bit of just general disgust with, you know, just not doing that, just killing the bad guys and doing the missions and hanging out with the ladies and playing the mini games and doing all that. Fine and dandy. But I purposely made myself go through this experience of, like, so ferociously that you're going to be physically, because I believe it is going to be an issue in the near future, and I found it very around the Boston Marathon bombing at that time, even if they weren't. And it just was, I was thinking about GTA 5, wanted to go back and dabble in GTA 4, and I was like, dang.
5. So, there's been a lot of debate recently as to whether or not Grand Theft Auto promotes violence.
So you're looking at right here, this is what's happening in that little box, the PlayStation PS3 or the Xboxes and all these different things. It's called Grand Theft Auto and games just like it. Every single day, I mean, that looks just like what happened in France. It looks just like what happened. You think, well, that's just a game. You know, that couldn't be happening. That really wouldn't be happening. But let me tell you something. In Washington, D.C., at the United States Navy base there was a man there. They said he was so hooked on these games, I think it was like 16 hours a day, that he would play these games, Grand Theft Auto, and he would play it so much that people would bring him food because he wouldn't even leave the game. 16 hours killing and shooting and maiming. And people say, that won't change society. That wouldn't actually change anything. Well, this is not a game I'm about to show you. This is a video surveillance of this man going from the virtual game, going to the physical aspect of a shotgun, walking into the Navy base. As a matter of fact, take a look at this right now. He's pulling in his car right here. This is not virtual. He's walking into the front building. He has a shotgun on his side right there. Here he is taking the shotgun. This is not a game. This is reality. This is in Washington, D.C. Navy base. He's walking down the hallway, and he begins to kill citizens. Citizens in our country, your neighbor, people that are serving us on this base right here. Look at him. And this is exactly what the game looks like. This is exactly what the game looks like. And so you have to understand, you can't, this is what the Lord said. The Lord says that, you know, if you can see it, then it'll happen. If you can see it, then it will happen. If you can believe it, if you begin to rehearse it, it begins to become a reality in your life. You know, he says, if you take a vision and you write it down and make it clear that other people understand it and you begin to walk in it, it'll come to pass. That's a natural thing that God's established. I mean, look at even secular businesses that understand, you know, that you got to have a vision. When they get a vision, it comes to pass. And it's just the way that God's created us. Well, if every single day, you know, you're murdering someone. I mean, you tell the wife, hey, baby, it was a great meal, what's going on? Then you go back to the back room, you put on the headset, and they do this virtually with people all around the world. As I said, I believe 34 million people, I believe it is, are doing this every day, you know, almost. And they're playing with each other and fighting each other on the streets, and they're killing authority. They're doing everything that you see. So when you see crowds get into streets today, when you see people say they want to go over to ISIS and go over to ISIL and go over to the Middle East and fight with ISIS, understand they've been fighting that fight and that mindset for quite a few years now. That's already been in their heart already. That's what's been going on. And we don't, you know, Australia, I believe, has outlawed the type games like that. I'm not sure, but we should outlaw murder. I mean, it's on the books. And think about it, if every single day you let someone murder someone in your home virtually, and then you're surprised, like when you think about the school shooting up in the Northeast, you think about all the school shootings going on, you think about the stabbings going on in the schools. I mean, these kids are playing these games. That's what they're talking about every single day. And my concern, if you missed that particular program that we talked about, you know, what does it look like this summer? This is what it looks like on a mass scale this summer. If we don't repent, this is what it looks like. It looks like this kind of, you know, loose behavior going on that people have trained, and they're just looking for a place. That's why you're looking at people right now. There's somebody saying, I don't understand why somebody would leave America and they would go all the way to the Middle East so they could do what? Do what they've been doing every single day on virtual games called Grand Theft Auto and games like that. They've already rehearsed it. They can see themselves cutting somebody's head off. They can see themselves shooting somebody. They can see themselves raping somebody. Women, reportedly, some reports are, one particular article that we'll have available to you on the VFN Torch, they talk about, you know, should you buy this particular game for your kids? I mean, that's actually a question. This is another question too. Should I abort my child? Should I kill my child? I mean, these are questions that we're asking ourselves. And just a brief scenario on that to let you know how crazy it seems to us today for anybody to ever think that you can enslave another person and live off their labors and pay them nothing and abuse them, how crazy that is today. And we say that should not be. There's going to be a day people are going to look back, because during that days of slavery, there was people in this nation and across the world didn't think anything was wrong with it. They didn't bring it up. They just let it happen. But there's going to be a day, the way we're looking at slavery today, when we're looking back at history and we're seeing how evil it was and how evil it is, they're going to look the same way at abortion. They're going to think, how could you ever allow that to happen? in your nation. How could you take that? How could you take 50 million lives, since 1973? And this particular virtual game, this kind of concept that's going on, this military type training, think about this. Put up the image of just the image of the Navy base in Washington, D.C. Here, I don't have the number on it. Think about this. Okay, this is Grand Theft Auto. Person's been trained. He's been doing it 16 hours a day, right? Now, reports are, we have all the references for you, that 48 hours, get this, 48 hours, no, you count 48 hours, after this person trained by Grand Theft Auto, which we allow to happen in our country, Grand Theft Auto released their next edition. Within 48 hours, they sold over 800 million new editions of the program. I mean, you think about that. In 48 hours, I mean, you would think, just business practices is like, okay, now you're the one that caused all these murders to take place at this Navy base, you back off a little. Instead, they actually just released it, and $800 million was sold in 48 hours. Guess what? In 3 days, over $1 billion of this was sold. Do you see what's taking place in society today? Over $1 billion was sold in 3 days of what's going on right there. But you know what just happened just a couple of days ago in France? Let me show you. This is not a video game. This is a reality, but notice it looks just like what I showed you. Take a look at this. What you're looking at right there, you're looking at a guy walking through the streets in France, just like the game, walking through the streets, beginning to fire people. It looks exactly like Grand Theft Auto. Think about it, exactly like Grand Theft Auto. We're going to have to start standing up for what's right. And one thing that's right, we've got to quit allowing murder to take place in the hearts. This is why God destroyed the contents of the earth during Noah's day, because evil was on their hearts and mind 24 hours a day. And playing Grand Theft Auto and rehearsing all these things as crime and sexual abuse against women and all these things that happen in these type of games, and then going out and doing it, this is like destroy the type, earth type things, happen.
Is this not amazing that this is what's taking place and we're surprised this thing is going on? Mm-hmm. This young lady said in the earlier interview, she said, I expected this to happen on our campus. We should expect it not to happen. That should be the norm.
Yeah.
So when you see things in the Word of God where it talks about the sword was going to be fashioned against a nation, those are weapons being fashioned against a nation. When you see these guns becoming commonplace, at the very same time where they're saying they want to outlaw guns, the very same people are supporting laws that promote virtual use of guns and the killing of guns. And it's like, it's just amazing what's taking place. So we need to prepare. I think this is really good. What Houston government put together called active shooter. But this happened in 2012. Mm-hmm. They knew this environment was being created, and this video went out, and we got to begin to think like this. We got to begin to think, what would I do if this took place? What would I do? I had a sad opportunity to see the video that was taking place at the Columbine school shooting. Mm-hmm. And being young as it is, but no matter what age you are, you have to be prepared that these things are unpredictable. What people do. And a lot of people think, this is what a lot of people think, because it's Second Amendment rights to be able to carry a gun. You can defend yourself and defend other folks, according to the laws of your land. You got to find out what your laws are. But the law enforcement, all they're going to hear is there's a bad guy with a gun, and it's at the mall or it's at some university. And you're thinking in your head, well, if somebody pulls a gun out and tries to hurt someone, I'm going to pull my gun out to deal with them. When the police officer shows up, you look exactly like what's in their head. You're the bad guy with the gun. And so, more guns being pulled out is not necessarily the answer at that particular point. But using wisdom, beginning to think things through. When I was in law enforcement for almost 10 years, I had to role play
Yeah.
again and again in my head. What would I do if this store was robbed? What would I do if this bank was robbed? What would I do, if this neighborhood, something was going on? Where would I go? If I go over this fence, which yard would I be in? You kind of role play
Yeah.
that. And when something goes down, you
helps
kind
you make the decisions.
You automatically just
Yeah.
do whatever you were trained to do. But if you just think it's not going to happen, it's happening again and again and again.
Yeah.
And it's totally predictable. People that have lost their mind, people that are just, spiritually, we would say, they're held captive by some sort of demonic presence and their brain is just shut down. They're being controlled. Paul wrote to his spiritual son Timothy, and he says that you got to help out. You got to worry about these people who are held captive by Lucifer to do his will.
Mm-hmm.
And the will of Satan, of course, is to steal, kill, and destroy. And they're not in their right mind when these things are going on. That's why, by the way, the answer to this is preach the gospel before it happens, to begin to become a disciple and make disciples, because then you're actually walking in the light. Your brain's not blinded. Their brain's not blinded, and they can see, that you don't kill folks.
Mm-hmm.
But when people think that you can kill a child in a womb is no big deal, that you can kill somebody that's elderly, that it's not a big deal that Christians are being beheaded and persecuted and killed overseas, they don't see a big deal in their own day-to-day minds that somebody's walking through a college campus and shooting, or going through a naval base and shooting. It's a big deal. It's murder in the eyes of God. Spilt blood of Abel, the very first man that was murdered on the face of the earth. His blood still cries out today. And so I want you to see this. This really makes sense, but understand they knew this was going to happen. They knew when Houston's government put this together, they knew this environment was, we got to begin to prepare for active shooters. And what we do if all of a sudden, if you're working at a bank, or you're a customer at a bank, or you're working in a government building, or you're a citizen going into that government building, either way, when it goes down, you need to know what to do. Take a look.
It may feel like just another day at the office, but occasionally, life feels more like an action movie than reality. The authorities are working hard to protect you and to protect our public spaces. But sometimes bad people do bad things. Their motivations are different. The warning signs may vary, but the devastating effects are the same. And unfortunately, you need to be prepared for the worst. If you were ever to find yourself in the middle of an active shooter event, your survival may depend on whether or not you have a plan. The plan doesn't have to be complicated. There are 3 things you could do that make a difference: run, hide, fight. First and foremost, if you can get out, do. Always try and escape or evacuate, even when others insist on staying. Encourage others to leave with you, but don't let them slow you down with indecision. Remember what's important: you, not your stuff. Leave your belongings behind and try to find a way to get out safely. Trying to get yourself out of harm's way needs to be your #1 priority. Once you are out of the line of fire, try to prevent others from walking into the danger zone and call 911. If you can't get out safely, you need to find a place to hide. Act quickly and quietly. Try to secure your hiding place the best you can. Turn out lights, and if possible, remember to lock doors. Silence your ringer and vibration mode on your cell phone. And if you can't find a safe room or closet, try to conceal yourself behind large objects that may protect you. Do your best to remain quiet and calm. As a last resort, if your life is at risk, whether you are alone or working together as a group, fight. Act with aggression. Improvise weapons. Disarm him. And commit to taking the shooter down, no matter what. Try to be aware of your environment. Always have an exit plan. Know that in an incident like this, victims are generally chosen randomly. The event is unpredictable and may evolve quickly. The first responders on the scene are not there to evacuate or tend to the injured. They are well trained and are there to stop the shooter. Your actions can make a difference for your safety and survival. Be aware and be prepared. And if you find yourself facing an active shooter, there are 3 key things you need to remember to survive. Run, hide, fight.
Who would ever thought? This is good information.
Yeah, it is very valuable to know that.
Sad to say that America's come to this day, and there was, this generation probably can't relate to it, but there was days you could leave your door unlocked all day long. You could, as children, you could go out and play. And this is what happened, and understand it was a different day. But you would wake up in the morning as children, and a lot of you can relate too, and you just say bye.
Yeah.
Or your parents would say bye, right? And you went out all day long.
And wouldn't come home until the sunset.
Or till you heard this big whistle kind of echoing through everywhere. It's like, oh my goodness,
That's calling me, I gotta go.
Yeah. And we played all day long. And we were creative. We climbed trees like idiots and did all kinds of things. And I can't tell you what Pat did, but it was pretty tragic. It was tragic. And so
Just leave it at that.
But that's where you learn to create. Today, people just don't do anything.
Yeah.
And they're strapping their kid down to the dining room chair because they're scared that he's going to fall out of the dining room chair. I mean, we used to think riding in the back of the truck was a reward, right?
Yeah. Yep.
That's what they told us. They just didn't want to sit in the cab, right? And it was always difficult when you were a kid sitting in the back of the truck. And you're sitting here, the person's in the car is right there, and they're coming your way, So obviously you're looking face to face, so you don't know where to look at them. It's a kid thing. You don't remember that.
I just remember the back of the car that was the seat was flipped the other way. So
the station wagon.
Yeah, the station wagon. So the entire time you're just waving at the traffic.
Like a station wagon. It's a station wagon.
Those
were pretty cool.
We had station wagons.
That was the form of rebellion in that day. I am going to sit in the seat that faces the opposite
other way.
direction. Right?
Yes.
And the kids thought the parents didn't like that. It's like, that's a good thing.
Yeah.
Okay, face the other way. But here we are today. You got to strap your kid in this. You get $500 fine if you don't, lock him down here. You got to do. And it's like we got to begin to trust God. And it's like the more fear that happens, and that's what you're seeing is an increase of fear. That's the absence of faith, the absence of trust and risk and love. And at some point, somebody's got to go. We got to begin to trust God again.
Yeah.
And one way we do that was we honor God by not putting out murdering games that murder someone Lord knows how many times. You see that game? How
Yeah.
many times he's murdering somebody every single day?
Now, that's one player. That's one person playing it. Imagine how
We
many
s-
people
we
are
saw the
playing it all
numbers.
around right now.
Yeah, I talked about the numbers in
Yeah.
that program, and it's not healthy. And when your children tell you, "Oh, it's not a big deal," listen, they don't have the frontal lobe in their head yet. They don't have the front part of their brain developed until they're 25. Sorry about that. And that's the part of your brain that understands there's consequences for your behavior. There's huge consequences for practicing murder every day. You know it plain as day because when you see a pizza commercial, you order pizza. There's something that kicks off an appetite, and next thing you know, Pat's ordering a pizza. You know what I'm saying? Just you don't eat pizza, John. And so, and people say, it doesn't bother me a bit. If you order pizza, if Pizza Hut spends millions of dollars to put the pizza in front of your face to make you order pizza, do you think not putting murder in front of your kid's face every single day? I mean, it's going to change who you are.
Yeah.
God's design. This is what Jesus said in Matthew 6:22. He says, "The eye is the light of the body. Whatever goes into the eye makes up the whole body. If darkness goes into our eyes, which means these kind of things, then our whole body is dark. And how great is that darkness?"
Yeah.
This is God speaking through his son to us to let us know, listen, your eye is more than some pupil. It's a hole to your soul. But if light comes into your eyes, good things come into your eyes, then you're full of light. And so we got to make a choice. This is why you have people just addicted to media and to their phones and to computers and to television and media because it's doing something to them. They like what it's doing to them. But as Christians, we have to say, you know what? I can't do that anymore because that's bringing darkness into my heart. It's bringing darkness into my family's heart. It's bringing darkness, murder. And that's why God, if you read the word of God, and 82% of Christians, 81% of Christians, according to George Barna, are not even picking up their Bibles at all. But he said that the reason why he destroyed the earth with the flood, remember Noah, was because on their minds, not necessarily in their actions, but on their minds was evil 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So if you wake up to shooting folks with a video game, then you watch movies with people, murder taking place in that, and then you come home and shoot more of that. I mean, that's a sign that God dealt
That's
with
not good.
a whole world. He'll deal with a nation. And the truth is that what we're seeing done virtually, what we're seeing take place virtually, we don't want that to take place to us. Why would we want to act like we're doing that to someone else, especially somebody who's creating the image and the likeness of God?
Yeah.
You think about that, of the image and the likeness of God. A lot of people want to abide with the Lord, but they just don't have a plan to do it. You can request that plan today at iabide.org. Thank you for watching the Greg Lancaster Show. Don't forget to follow us, like us, and subscribe. Go to our YouTube channels, Facebook, Instagram, Rumble, Parler, Spotify, iTunes. Download our app, even on Getter. Go to the Apple Store and rate us. When you rate us, more people will get the broadcast. That's how this whole logarithm thing works. And thank you for watching the Greg Lancaster Show.